Hey guys, it's Rob Dimension with another episode of Dimension Chats. Now today is, I guess, basically going to be about wrestling because WrestleMania just ended. WrestleMania 30 just happened in New Orleans this past weekend, and we had an amazing Raw. And then today we wake up to news that the Ultimate Warrior passed. So it's pretty crazy to be a wrestling fan right now. You know, I am pretty open about wrestling on online and stuff about how well that WWE Network has really changed my perspective on wrestling. There was a time where I was kind of, I guess, disappointed and kind of mad at the way things, not that anything really went bad, but I just wasn't really happy with the way that things went. And, you know, when you're in that business, sometimes it can kind of wear on you. And by having the WWE Network, it kind of really changed my, I guess it changed my love for wrestling and it really brought it back. So it's so good. You know, I just was able to do an interview with Bill Apter about WrestleMania predictions, which you can see on robdimension.com or at onewrestling.com. And that was good. I had a great time. But anyway, if you want to hear more about our WrestleMania 30 recap, today after this, we're going to be recording our first Rob Dimension's Shock and Wrestling podcast, which will be about horror and wrestling. And I'll be talking with Matt Barnes, who is actually behind the camera doing this and editing. And he actually was there at WrestleMania 30. So I can't wait to get his perspective and talk about all the craziness that happened. But let's get to some questions. So the first question is brought to me by a good friend of mine named Scott Reeves. And he asked where my love for wrestling came from and like really what it spawned from. Well, my dad was a big wrestling fan. So I can remember as a kid watching wrestling, and in fact, my whole family, his side of the family was all wrestling fans. And we would, you know, during the day, I would watch Superstars at 10 a.m. and then I would watch World Class at noon. And then at 6:05, I would watch, you know, the WCW at the time, which was the NWA stuff. And man, what a crazy show that was. You know, I was fortunate because I did have those three on every Saturday night. So it was a great time. But, you know, some of my best memories are going to the Spectrum or going to the Philadelphia Civic Center to see, you know, all the superstars, seeing like, you know, Dusty and seeing Flair and seeing Hogan and seeing the Ultimate Warrior and seeing, you know, Andre the Giant versus John Studd. You know, the Spectrum shows are probably my favorite shows. I saw Dusty and Tully at the Civic Center go with a barbed wire match. I saw like Flair and Luger go an hour time limit, which now that I look back, to watch Luger for an hour was probably more painful than probably a great memory, but it still is a great memory. And, you know, even WrestleMania 2, I was able to go to the Spectrum and watch it on the big screen, which it seems so crazy now that, you know, especially technology is able to bring us, you know, this WWE Network, and we're able to watch the pay-per-view on their streaming channel, when at that time, you know, we had to go to the Spectrum and watch it up on these big screens. So it was definitely a crazy time, to say the least. All right, so Billy Wood writes, being that this year was a WrestleMania to remember, what is your favorite WrestleMania moment of all time? I don't necessarily have a favorite. I think WrestleMania 17 is still probably one of my favorite shows. I think that the Shane and Vince street fight is just, it's crazy. You know what they did. I think that that's the Rock in Austin, right?
Rock in Austin 2.
Yeah, it's a good show. You know, I've actually went back and rewatched that show, but I think I've forgotten a lot about the WrestleManias, and now that I have the network, I've gone through and we sat down one day and we went like WrestleMania to WrestleMania. WrestleMania 1 still is great. WrestleMania 3, that's a great show. You know, I love being a former manager. There's one match. There's Adrian Adonis versus Roddy Piper, and it's Piper's retirement match or whatever he was going to call it at the time, and Jimmy Hart, who weighs like maybe 140, is managing Adrian Adonis, who at the time had ballooned up to like, you know, 360 or maybe more, maybe 400 pounds. And I kid you not, there are like just spot after spot after spot after spot where Hart is just getting pummeled. And I don't know, for some reason that always makes me smile, that particular match, which is probably an odd one. But I guess, like I said, WrestleMania 17 this year for WrestleMania 30, though, the opening with Austin, The Rock, and Hogan was just, it's crazy. Like if I was there at age 43, I would have probably lost my shit. So, I did think that was a really good question, though. And then someone said, Chris Beringer wrote, "Gotta address the elephant in the room. Do you agree or disagree with Brock Lesnar ending the streak? In conjunction, do you think the streak being broken overshadowed Daniel Bryan's WWE title win?" Do I disagree with Brock Lesnar ending the streak? No. Do I think the streak needed to be broken? Yes. It's been talked about for years. It was talked about that last year there was a possibility that Punk was going to break the streak. I think that the way that it worked out, everyone was shocked. It's a shame that I guess that there was an injury early on in the match with Undertaker that caused him to not really know where he was or what he was doing, so it made the match a little sloppy. But I don't really look at it that way. I look at it as, here's the fact of the matter is, I saw like so many people so mad about this. When you create a character, which in essence, The Undertaker is a character, and the streak happened by accident. It really did. It started off where we're going to put, The Undertaker over this one, and then this one. And then all of a sudden someone's like, well, wait a second. He's like 8-0, and then it's 10-0, then it's 15-0. And then it becomes something. It becomes marketable for Vince McMahon to say, hey, we can put out a streak DVD. Hey, we have this, we have this. And another theory is that, well, anyway, back to that. When he says, when you create a character and you make that character, you have the right as the creator to end that character in any way, shape, or form that you want. And we as viewers have no say. It happens in TV shows. It happens in movies. I've said it before, out of stuff that I've created myself, if I can ever do a Mumbles the Clown movie, there's a really good possible chance that Mumbles the Clown is going to die at the end because that's what I want. So do I think that that was wrong? And then there was somebody else that said, I know I'm scatterbrained today, just a busy day. Somebody said, it's not fair for The Undertaker to lose to a part-time wrestler. And I was like, well, wait a second. Since when has The Undertaker had a full schedule? Last time I checked, he was a part-time wrestler. You know what I'm saying? Like, he wrestles like 2 matches a year. And Brock Lesnar has wrestled more than that. And I guess more people were adding about how Brock Lesnar's this past year had went. And how, behind the scenes, and people will say that wins and losses don't necessarily matter. But now, they're putting a significance on the win and loss. So it does matter. Well, it only matters for The Undertaker. It matters because it sells DVDs, it sells t-shirts, it creates hype. For everyone else, nobody else cares. Who wins and who loses, 3 months down the line, people have forgotten, people don't matter. And in all honesty, you can lose. When I was working for Alpha, the Wild Samoans, WXW, and I had like a little group, I don't think we ever won. The key is to keep your heat. So Brock Lesnar, he fights John Cena at Extreme Rules back in last year and loses to Cena. But what a great match. Like, if you look back, that match is highly underrated. And I don't think it hurt at all for Brock Lesnar to lose. I don't think anything that's happened with Brock Lesnar hurts. The guy is legitimate. He's a legitimate badass. He's a UFC fighter. I guess the only thing that someone could say is, does it make wrestling look weaker than UFC? And the answer is still no. Like, I think that people have to get past the fact that for years we were under this scope of wrestling was real. And while the injuries and everything else that happens are very real, it's more or less a storyline. So it's just like watching your favorite TV show or your favorite movie. Some characters make it, some characters don't. Some things happen, some things don't. So, I don't think that that's really... it's Undertaker's choice, to who he wants to lose to. So I think that Brock Lesnar, if there's anyone, especially with Paul Heyman, which if you didn't see Monday's Raw, Paul Heyman's speech was insane. Probably one of the best promos I've ever seen. This will allow new things to happen. I understand that Brock Lesnar is not necessarily a full-time wrestler, but we don't know what WWE has planned for Brock. We don't know what goes on behind closed doors, what contracts are signed, what he's going to do. It's all speculation. So I think people that are overly saying I'm done with WWE, I'm not going to watch it anymore. If you really quit watching Sunday night because of the Taker losing, you've missed some really spectacular stuff that's happened since then. That's it for the questions today, but I just want to talk a little bit about Ultimate Warrior. I was never really a huge Ultimate Warrior fan. I kind of was. It was when he was making his way up, I was on my way out as a fan. I was getting older and I was playing sports and whatnot. If the Ultimate Warrior had passed away before this past weekend, he probably would have been thought of by a lot of people as a joke, because I feel that his career in the last few years was looked at as that way. He was looked at as just being off the wall, and I think his level of respect had went down. If anything, this past weekend, his level of respect went up. You saw that he was a family man. You saw that he was married. His kids and wife loved him. You saw that he had kind of made peace with WWE. It's good that, I guess bonds were recreated and hatchets were buried and stuff like that. And I actually have to say, like, when I watch his speech and then I watch his speech on Raw on Monday night, it really brought me back into being a fan of the Ultimate Warrior. So, it's a shame. It's a shame that his... he passed away at such a critical point on really his second chance back in wrestling. So, I'm sorry to hear that. But anyway, make sure you check us out next week for another episode of Dimension Chat, where I will probably be wearing the same outfit. And we will talk about horror. I have horror questions for people. Steve Perino, a good friend of mine, had written up 5 solid questions that are all based around the genre, so I can't wait to get to them. So we will see you next week. Make sure you visit robdimension.com or you'vebeenrobfilms.com. Take care, guys.